I was 47 years old, lying on my bed in nothing but a black lace bra that was actively trying to kill me, and the only person I could call about it was my best friend Linda. The welts on my chest looked like I'd been in a fistfight. Two angry red lines cutting across my ribcage, right where the underwire had decided to stage a coup. I'd ordered a small because that's what the size chart said, but apparently my body had missed the memo about being small dot, or maybe the bra was manufactured by sadists. Either way, I was breathing shallowly and regretting every life choice that had led me to this moment. I grabbed my phone and dialed Linda's number. She picked up on the second ring. "Linda, I need you to listen," I said, not waiting for hello. "That bra I bought last week, the black one, the one I sent you pictures of, it's too small, like genuinely too small. I have marks on my skin that I look like I've been branded, and I'm not even that big, you know? I'm perfectly average. This is false advertising. This is a crime against boobs everywhere." Silence. "Hello, are you looking at the photos? I did the 3-pose thing, front, side, back, so you could see the full scope of the disaster. The side one is criminal. You can see the indentations. I'm suffocating in this thing. Linda, I can't breathe. I feel like a sausage casing." The line went dead. I stared at the phone. Linda never hung up on me. We've been best friends for 20 years, and our rule was that you only hung up if someone was actively dying, and even then you shouted fire first so the other person could get their last words in. I called back immediately. "You have a problem." Linda's voice shrieked through the speaker, and I yanked the phone away to save my eardrums. "A real problem, Margaret." "What the hell?" I said. "I'm the one with the bra problem. You." "That wasn't me," she screamed. "That was my brother. You just described your entire boob situation to my brother. And why brother? Marcus. The one you've been asking about for 6 years, but pretending you haven't." All the blood in my body rushed to my face, then fled, leaving me cold and nauseous. "Who?" "Marcus, the MY older brother, the architect. The one you've been obsessed with since college, the one you ask about every time I mention him, the one whose Instagram you definitely don't stalk because that would be crazy to that brother." Marcus. The man I'd first seen through a dorm window when I was 21, carrying a bag of groceries for Linda, looking up at exactly the wrong moment and smiling at me like I was a person worth smiling at. I'd spent 6 years thinking about that smile. I'd spent 6 years avoiding him at family gatherings, pretending I wasn't interested, pretending I wasn't memorizing every detail Linda let slip. And now he'd heard me complain about my bra. "Linda," I said, my voice very calm, "I'm going to need you to tell me exactly what he heard." Everything he heard you say suffocating. He heard you reference the side one. He heard you say the word branded. And then he looked at the pictures because he had my phone for like 10 minutes and he went through all my notifications. I closed my eyes. "What did he say?" "He said you had a problem." And then he handed me the phone and walked into the kitchen and he was laughing. Laughing? Like mean laughing? No, like I don't know. Like he found it adorable? He was shaking his head and smiling. He made coffee and he kept smiling into his mug. I felt my soul leave my body. Adorable, he thought I was adorable. That was worse than thinking I was insane because now I had to live with the knowledge that he'd seen me at my most vulnerable and found it charming. "I'm going to move to another country," I said. "Don't be dramatic. You've been wanting him to notice you for 6 years. Now he's noticed. Not like this. Not with bra talk. Margaret, you're 47. You have a mortgage and a 401k and a cat that throws up on your rug. You're too old for this level of embarrassment. Just own it. He thinks you're funny. That's a good sign." I hung up on her, which was fair, considering she'd earned it. But I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus's laugh. I'd never heard him laugh before. In all the years of watching him from a distance, he'd always been composed, serious, a little guarded. And now I'd made him laugh to be why accident, be why talking about my boobs. That night, I lay in bed replaying the call, analyzing every word I'd said. The phrase criminal had been particularly ill-advised. And the way I'd said suffocating, like I was describing a hostage situation that I wanted to crawl into a hole and never come out. But something else nagged at me. Linda had said Marcus was laughing, but she'd also said he was shaking his head like he was amused, sure, but also like he was thinking about something else. Something that made him smile, even after the call ended. What was he thinking? I didn't sleep well that night, and when I did sleep, I dreamed about his hands. I'd seen them once, years ago, when he'd come to fix Linda's laptop, long fingers, steady, confident. In the dream, those hands were pressing me against a refrigerator, and I woke up sweaty and confused. The next morning, Linda texted me, "Asterisk dinner at my parents' house Saturday. Marcus will be there. You're coming, asterisk." "No way," I typed back. Asterisk, yes way. You need to apologize face to face. He's not going to forget this, so you might as well clear the air. Asterisk. I can't look him in the eye. Asterisk, then look at his chest. He has a nice chest. You've mentioned it. Asterisk. I hated her. I loved her. Both things were true. I agreed to go, but I spent the next 4 days trying on outfits and rejecting them. Too casual, too formal, too revealing, not revealing enough. Finally, I settled on a black turtleneck that covered everything from my collarbone to my chin. It was the opposite of sexy, which was the goal, because the goal was to convince Marcus I was a serious adult who didn't talk about her underwear. I arrived at the house at exactly 6 because I was pathologically punctual. Linda opened the door, gave me a once-over, and said, "Nice nun cosplay." Shut up. He's in the kitchen. Try not to mention any body parts. I walked into the living room, and there he was. Marcus Stevens was exactly as good-looking as I remembered. He was 46 now, with a few gray streaks at his temples that only made him look more distinguished. He was wearing a dark blue sweater with the sleeves pushed up, and his forearms were a distraction I hadn't prepared for. He was leaning against the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone, and when he looked up and saw me, he didn't smile. He just looked at me, like he was waiting for something. "Margaret," he said. "Good to see you." "Eat." My voice cracked. I cleared my throat. Sorry about the phone call. I thought you were Linda. I know. I would never. I normally don't. Margaret. He set his phone down and stepped closer. It's fine. I'm not offended. I thought it was funny. You thought it was funny? I thought you were funny. There's a difference. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just stood there, frozen, while he studied me with that quiet, unreadable expression. Linda told me you've been asking about me, he said. My stomach dropped. She told you that? She told me you ask about me a lot. She said you've been doing that for years. I was going to kill Linda. I was going to strangle her with her own hair. Margaret, I've been aware of you for a long time, he said. You know that, right? What? 6 years ago. The dorm window. I saw you. You were watching me. I felt my face burn. I was looking out the window. It was a coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence. You were watching me, and I was watching you. I just never said anything. I stared at him. Why not? Because you were Linda's friend. Because I didn't want to make things complicated. Because I didn't know if you were actually interested or just curious. And now I know you're interested. And I'm interested too. So I'm going to ask you out, and I want you to say yes, but I'm giving you the option to say no now so you don't feel pressured. He said it so casually, like he was ordering coffee. No nerves, no hesitation. Just pure confidence. You're insane, I said. Probably. I'm too old for games. No games. Just dinner. Next Saturday. My place. I'll cook. I opened my mouth to say no, but what came out was, okay. He smiled then. A real smile, warm and open, and I felt something shift in my chest. Good, he said. I'll text you the address. That was the first thing I got wrong. I thought he was just being charming. I didn't know he'd been planning this for years. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. Margaret Stevens, I know about you, and Marcus. I stared at the screen. My heart started to race, but not in a good way. Who is this? I typed back. Someone who's been watching you both for a long time. What do you want? Asterisk, I want you to know the truth about him. He's not the person you think he is. Ask him about his ex-wife. He'll never tell you. Asterisk. I put the phone down. I didn't reply, but the message stayed in my head, gnawing at me. The dinner at his place was perfect. He cooked salmon and roasted vegetables, and we talked for hours. He told me about his architecture firm, about the buildings he designed, about his love of light and space. I told him about my job in HR, about the absurd complaints I'd handled, about how I'd learned to read people for a living. He was attentive. He asked questions. He laughed at my jokes. And I started to relax, started to feel like maybe this could work. But I couldn't stop thinking about the text. So, I said, when the conversation lulled, Linda mentioned you were married once. He went still, just for a second, but I caught it. Briefly, he said. It was a long time ago. What happened? He looked at me, and I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Wariness, maybe, or regret. She cheated, he said. I handled it badly. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. I don't mean to be secretive. I'm not that person anymore. I've done the work. I've been to therapy. I know what I did wrong. What did you do wrong? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I punished her, not physically. Psychologically, I made her life a living hell until she left. And I told myself I was justified because she'd hurt me first. But that doesn't excuse it. I felt a chill run down my spine. Marcus, that's who I was. That's not who I am now. But I need you to know, because if we're going to do this, I don't want you to find out later and think I lied to you. I sat there, processing he was being honest, brutally, uncomfortably honest, and I appreciated that, but I also felt a whisper of doubt. Was the text warning me about this, or was there something worse? Thank you for telling me, I said. He nodded. I'm not hiding anything else, Margaret. I promise you that. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to let myself fall into this, but I was too old to ignore my instincts, and my instincts were telling me something wasn't adding up. I didn't sleep that night either. The text kept looping in my head, a quiet hum of anxiety I couldn't shut off. Asterisk, ask him about his ex-wife. He'll never tell you. Asterisk, but he had told me. He'd opened up about the marriage, about how he punished her, about the therapy. That didn't feel like hiding. That felt like confession. So why did I still feel like something was wrong? Because I was 47 years old, and I'd learned the hard way that people who offer up their darkest secrets too early are usually curating the story. They're giving you the version they want you to hear, the one that makes them look reformed and self-aware. The real dirt stays buried. I picked up my phone and texted Linda. Did you send me a text from an unknown number? Her reply came back in seconds. What are you talking about? Asterisk, someone texted me saying I should ask Marcus about his ex-wife. They knew about us. Asterisk. Linda called me within 30 seconds. Margaret, what the hell? I didn't send you anything. I wouldn't do that. Then who would? I don't know. Maybe an ex? Or someone from his past. He's got a history, Margaret. I've told you that. You never told me he was married. She went quiet. I didn't think it was my place. And honestly, it was so long ago. He was a different person then. How different? Margaret, I love my brother, but he did some things after his divorce that I'm not proud of. Nothing illegal, but cruel, cold. He made Ella's life miserable. He installed tracking software on her phone, sent screenshots of her messages to her family, made sure everyone knew she'd cheated. He didn't just walk away. He burned the whole house down. I felt my stomach drop. That's not just cruelty. That's obsessive. It was, and he went to therapy for years afterward. He's not that person anymore, that I swear to you, he's not. But if someone from that time who would still be angry after all this time, I don't know. Maybe Ella herself. She never fully recovered from what he did. She lost her job, her friends, her reputation. She had to move to another state to start over. I was quiet for a long time. Then I said, Linda, why didn't you tell me this before? You knew I was interested in him for years. Because I didn't want you to judge him based on who he was. I wanted you to see who he is now. And also, she hesitated, I was scared. If you knew what he'd done, you'd never give him a chance. And I think he deserves a chance. He's been alone for a long time. Margaret, he's changed. Changed people still have patterns. True, but they also have to prove themselves. You're an HR director. You've seen people reform. You know it's possible. I didn't answer. I was too busy reevaluating everything. The next day, I did something reckless. I looked up Ella's name. It wasn't hard. She had a LinkedIn profile, a quiet one, with a job at a small accounting firm in Portland. I sent her a message. Asterisk, hi, I'm Margaret. I'm dating your ex-husband. I know this is weird, but someone sent me an anonymous text warning me about him. I'm trying to understand what really happened. Asterisk. I didn't expect her to reply, but she did, within an hour. You're the brave one, she wrote. Asterisk, most women just ghost him when they find out I'll tell you the truth, but it's not the version he'll give you. I cheated. I was young, I was stupid, and I had an affair. But Marcus didn't just punish me. He destroyed me. He made my life a living hell for 2 years after we separated. He sent my intimate photos to my boss. He called my mother and told her I was a slut. He showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m., not to hurt me physically, but to watch me be scared. He wanted me to know he was always there, always watching. That's the man you're dating. Asterisk. My hands were shaking. I'm sorry that happened to you, I typed. Are you the one who texted me? Asterisco no, but I'm glad someone did. You deserve to know who you're getting into bed with. Asterisk. I sat there, staring at the screen. This wasn't just a bad breakup. This was psychological warfare, and Marcus had admitted to it, but he'd made it sound like a mutual mistake. He'd glossed over the details. He'd made himself seem like a victim who'd reacted badly. That was a red flag I couldn't ignore. That evening, Marcus called. Hey, I'm making dinner tomorrow. Thought we could watch a movie. I need to talk to you, I said. His voice shifted. Okay, sounds serious. Can you come over tonight? I'll be there in 30 minutes. He arrived with coffee because he knew I drank it at all hours. He sat on my couch and I sat across from him and I didn't know how to start. Marcus, I know about Ella. I know you didn't just punish her. I know you stalked her. I know you sent her photos to her boss. I know you showed up at her apartment at 2 a.m. to scare her. His face went pale. Where did you hear that? Does it matter? Is it true? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, yes, it's true. And I've spent every day since trying to be someone else. I've been in therapy for 8 years. I've done the work. I've sat in rooms full of people like me, people who hurt others because they were hurt, and I've confronted every ugly piece of myself. Did I know what I did was unforgivable? But I'm not that man anymore. Marcus, you can't just. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to look at who I am now, and I haven't done anything like that since. I've never even raised my voice at a partner since. I've built a life that's about building, not destroying, but I can't erase the past, and if that's a deal breaker for you, I understand. I wanted to walk away. Every instinct told me to protect myself. But I also saw something in his eyes. Not the cold calculation he described, but real shame, real regret. I need time, I said. Take all the time you need. He left and I sat alone trying to process. The man I'd loved from a distance for 6 years had a monster inside him, but the monster had been caged. The question was, could I trust the cage? I called Linda. I need you to be honest with me. Did you send that text? No, I swear. But I'm not surprised someone did. Ella still talks about him like he's the devil. She's not objective. What do you mean? She cheated on him first, Margaret, and not just a fling, a full affair with a coworker. She lied to him for months. He was devastated. And yes, he went overboard, but she's not a victim either. She's a woman who got caught and then got scorched. She's never taken responsibility for her part. But that doesn't justify what he did. No, IT doesn't, but it explains it. He was in pain and he had no idea how to handle it. He went nuclear. That's not an excuse, it's a reason. And he spent years making sure he never reacts that way again. I sat with that. So what do? You decide if you can live with who he was, and you watch who he is. That's all any of us can do. I didn't contact Marcus for 3 days that I went to work. I came home, I fed my cat, I stared at the wall, but on the 4th day, he texted. Asterisk, I'm not going to push you, but I'm not going to disappear either. When you're ready, I'm here, asterisk. That was the right thing to say. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't manipulative. It was patient. I called him that night. I want to try, but I need you to be completely open with me. No more secrets. I promise. And I need you to understand, if I ever catch even a whiff of that old behavior, I'm gone. I'm not a rehabilitation project. I'm a person. I know that, and I don't want to rehab you. I want to be with you. That's all. I could live with that, for now. 3 weeks later, we were at his apartment, cooking dinner together, and everything felt easy. Natural, he'd been gentle and attentive, never pushing, always checking in. He even asked if I wanted him to stop contacting me when I was stressed, which no man had ever asked me before. And then Linda called. I stepped into the other room to answer. Margaret, I need to tell you something, she said, and her voice was shaking. I sent those texts. What? I sent the anonymous texts, the warnings that I needed you to know about his past, but I couldn't tell you directly because he'd be furious at me as, oh, I did it behind a burner number. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I felt the world tilt. Linda, you lied to me. You sat there and told me you didn't send them. Because I was scared. I was scared you'd hate me. I was scared Marcus would cut me off. But I couldn't let you go into this blind. I've seen him hurt people. I needed you to know. How long have you been lying? Since the first text. I'm a coward. I admit it, but I did it for you. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. You could have just told me. You could have sat me down and said, my brother has a history, here's what happened. Instead, you played games. You made me think someone else was after us. I know, I'm a terrible person, but I love you both, and I couldn't stand the thought of you getting hurt the way Ella did. Linda, I get to decide what hurts me, not you, not Marcus, me, and you took that away from me. She was crying now. I'm so sorry, Margaret. I'll do anything to make it right. I hung up. I walked back into the kitchen, and Marcus was stirring the sauce, looking at me with concern. Everything okay? Your sister sent those texts. She's been lying to both of us. He set down the spoon. What? She wanted to warn me about your past. She was trying to protect me, but she did it in the worst possible way. He stared at me. Then he said very quietly, she's been doing this for years, manipulating things behind the scenes. She did it with Ella too. She told Ella I was cheating when I wasn't, just to see what would happen. She's got this control thing. She can't stop herself. I felt a chill. You knew. I suspected. I didn't have proof, but I know my sister. She's always tried to manage my relationships. She thinks she's helping. So she's been playing us both. Looks like it. We stood there in silence. The sauce bubbled on the stove. The cat meowed from the couch. And I realized that this relationship wasn't just between me and Marcus. It was between me and his entire family, and they all had their own agendas. Marcus, I need a break, I said. I need to figure out what I actually want. Without Linda's influence. Without your past. Just me. He nodded slowly. I understand. Take all the time you need. I left that night, and I didn't look back. I didn't go straight home, but I drove for an hour, aimlessly, through neighborhoods I'd never seen, past strip malls and parks and schools I'd never attended. I needed movement. I needed to feel like I was going somewhere, even if I had no destination. When I finally pulled into my driveway, it was nearly midnight. My cat, Mabel, greeted me with a look of profound disappointment, which was her default expression. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall for a long time. Linda had played me, and my best friend of 20 years had manufactured a crisis to warn me about a man she supposedly wanted me to date. And Marcus had let me believe he was the only guilty party when he'd known about Linda's patterns all along. Everyone in this equation was hiding something, and I was the only one stupid enough to believe I was getting the full story. At 2 a.m., I sent Linda a text. Asterisk, we need to talk. My place. Tomorrow at noon. You come alone. Asterisk. She replied immediately. I'll be there. She showed up at 11:45, which meant she was early and nervous. Linda was never early. She was the kind of person who arrived 15 minutes late to her own birthday party. She sat on my couch, her hands twisted in her lap, and I sat across from her. The coffee table between us felt like a negotiation table. Before you say anything, she started. I want you to know I'm sorry. I've been sorry since the moment I sent that first text. It was wrong. It was cowardly. And I don't expect you to forgive me. Good, because I'm not forgiving you yet. I leaned forward. Start from the beginning. Why did you do it? She took a shaky breath. Because I knew what Marcus did to Ella, and I knew he'd never tell you the full story. He'd make himself sound reformed, which he is, but he'd leave out the worst parts. And I thought if you knew those parts, you'd walk away, which is what I wanted. Why would you want that? You're the one who set us up. You've been pushing us together for years. Because I'm a control freak. Margaret, that I've always been a control freak. That I thought I could manage this, that I thought if I introduced you, I could make sure it went right. But then I saw him looking at you the way he used to look at Ella, and I panic. He gets obsessed. He gets intense, and I couldn't stand the thought of you being another casualty of his intensity. Linda, I'm not Ella. I'm not 25 and naive. I'm 47 years old. I've been through a divorce. I've been through betrayals. I can handle a man with a past. I know that now, but at the time, I couldn't see it. I only saw the pattern. Marcus falls hard, and when he gets hurt, he explodes. And I didn't want you to be the one caught in the blast. You still have to hear. That's not your decision to make. You can't protect me from my own choices. I know, but you have to understand. I've been protecting him my whole life. From our parents, from bullies, from his own mistakes. It's a reflex. I can't just turn it off. Then you need to learn, because if you keep playing puppet master, you're going to lose everyone, including me. She started crying. Ugly crying. The kind where you can't breathe through your nose. I'm so sorry, Margaret. I'll do anything but I'll go to therapy. I'll stay out of your relationship. Just please don't cut me off. Linda, I'm not cutting you off, but I need you to give me space for a while. I need to figure out what I want without your input. She nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. Okay, whatever you need. After she left, I sat alone for another hour. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I called Marcus's mother. Claire was a sharp, warm woman in her early 70s, a retired librarian who still read 3 books a week. We'd met at several family dinners, and she'd always treated me with kindness, even when I was clearly avoiding her son, that I had her number from Linda's emergency contacts list. She answered on the 3rd ring. Margaret, this is a surprise. Is everything all right? Not really, Claire. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Of course, dear. What is it? Your son told me about his ex-wife, about what he did after the divorce, and your daughter has been trying to manipulate the situation. I'm trying to understand why this family is so. I searched for the word, broken. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Margaret, can you come over? This isn't a conversation for the phone. I drove to her house, a modest bungalow in the same neighborhood she'd lived in for 40 years. She met me at the door with tea and a tired smile. Sit down, dear. This is going to take a while. She told me about Marcus's childhood, how he'd been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one she'd invested all her hopes in. And how Linda, 2 years younger, had always been the difficult one, the one who acted out, the one who needed more attention, the one who resented her brother's effortless success. Marcus didn't ask to be the favorite, Claire said. But he was, and Linda knew it. She spent her whole life trying to compete with him, trying to control him, trying to prove she's just as worthy. That's why she sabotages his relationships. It's not malice, Margaret. It's desperation. That doesn't excuse it. Of course not. But understanding it makes it easier to handle. At least I hope it does. I sipped my tea. What about Marcus? What happened to him? He was always a sensitive boy, too sensitive. When his father and I divorced, he was about 16. He took it harder than anyone. He blamed himself. He thought if he'd been a better son, his father would have stayed. And when Ella cheated on him, it opened that wound all over again. He didn't just lose a wife. He lost his sense of self. He felt like he'd failed again, and he lashed out. So, he's not a monster. He's a traumatized man who made terrible choices. That's exactly what he is. And he spent years trying to heal. But trauma doesn't go away, Margaret. It just goes underground. The question is whether you can live with the underground version. I sat there processing. And Linda, does she know any of this? She knows more than she'll admit. She was there. She saw how our family fell apart, but she channels her pain into control instead of healing. She's never confronted it. And until she does, she'll keep pulling strings. Claire reached across and took my hand. You're a good woman, Margaret. You deserve a good man. Marcus is a good man now, but he comes with a complicated family that I won't blame you if you walk away. I only ask that you judge him for who he is today, not who he was. I thanked her and left. I didn't call Marcus. I sat with the information for 2 more days, turning it over in my head. Linda's fear of abandonment, Marcus's fear of failure. A family system built on secrets and guilt and desperately unmet needs. None of it was my problem that I had my own baggage, my own patterns that I'd spent years avoiding vulnerability, telling myself I was too old for risk, too practical for romance. And here I was, 47, tangled in someone else's trauma, trying to decide if I was brave enough to stay. On the 3rd day, Marcus showed up at my door. I know I said I wouldn't push, he said, standing on my porch with flowers I didn't want and a face I couldn't look away from. But I couldn't keep waiting. You need to make a decision, and I need to know what it is, even if it's no. I let him in. We sat in my kitchen, and I told him everything. His mother's revelations. Linda's confession. My own growing suspicion that I've been looking for a reason to run. Marcus, I'm scared, I said. Not of you, not of this, but of trusting someone again, of being let down, of being the one who gets burned. I've been single for a long time, that I built a fortress around myself. And now you're standing at the gate, and I don't know if I want to open it. He reached across the table and took my hand. Then don't open it all at once. We can take it slowly, that we can start with a date, then another date, then maybe a weekend. I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for now. That's not how I work. I need to know if this is going somewhere. Then I'll show you, Margaret. I'll show up. I'll be consistent. I'll tell you everything. And if I ever slip, you'll be the first to note. I'm not perfect, but I'm committed. That's all I can promise. I looked at his hand on mine. Warm, steady, not gripping, just holding. Okay, I said, but you need to talk to Linda. I will. And you need to stop protecting her. She's not your responsibility. She's a grown woman who needs to face her own demons. He nodded. You're right. I've been enabling her for years out of guilt. Because I got the better end of the deal. Because I was the favorite. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. And the truth is what I need. He smiled then, a real smile, and I felt something loosen in my chest. Not because everything was fixed, but because we were both trying. Marcus kept his word. The next morning, he sent me a text. Asterisk going to Linda's now. I'll call you after. Asterisk. I spent the next 2 hours pacing my apartment, feeding Mabel treats she didn't want, and refreshing my phone every 30 seconds that I told myself I wasn't worried. I told myself this was a healthy step, 2 siblings finally confronting their dysfunction, but I've been in HR long enough to know that family conversations rarely went the way people hoped. When my phone finally rang, it was Marcus's voice, but it was tight, controlled, the kind of control that meant he was holding something back. It's done, he said. How did it go? She didn't take it well. She accused me of turning you against her. She said I was trying to take her best friend away, and then she said something that he paused. I don't know if I should tell you this. Marcus, you promised no more secrets. She said you knew about Ella before the phone call, before any of this. She said you'd been asking her about me for years, and she'd been feeding you information. But she also said she told you about Ella 3 years ago. She showed you the divorce records. She made sure you knew exactly who I was before you ever got close to me. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's not true. Isn't it? Marcus, I didn't know about Ella until you told me. I didn't know about any of it. Linda never showed me anything. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, why would she lie about that? I don't know. To make you doubt me? To drive a wedge between us? That's what she does, right? She controls the narrative. She said you asked her for the records. She said you wanted to know everything before you got involved. She made it sound like you'd been investigating me behind my back. And you believed her? I didn't know what to believe. You're both the most important people in my life, and you're both telling me different things. I sat down on the couch, my legs suddenly weak. Marcus, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I have never seen any divorce records. I have never asked Linda for anything about your past. The first time I heard about Ella was when you told me, and I had to look her up myself because I couldn't trust that I was getting the full story from anyone. He was quiet again. Then, I believe you. I do. I need to process this. Linda's been lying to me for years, and now she's trying to make you the villain. I think she's scared. She's losing control of the situation, and she's panicking. Panic doesn't excuse what she did. No, but it explains it. She's not evil, Marcus. She's wounded, and wounded people do terrible things when they feel cornered. He let out a long breath. What do we do? Give her space. Don't engage. Let her sit with what she's done, and we focus on us. If we let her pull us apart, she wins. Okay. His voice steadied. Okay, that's smart. It's just HR training. Conflict de escalación. He laughed, a real laugh, and the tension broke. I love you, Margaret. The words hung in the air. We hadn't said that before. Not once. It was too soon, too fragile, too reckless. I started, but I couldn't finish. Don't say it back if you don't mean it, he said gently. I just wanted you to know. I've been holding that in for a long time. 6 years, actually, since I saw you in that window. Marcus. It's okay. Take your time. I sat there holding the phone, trying to breathe. 6 years. He'd loved me for 6 years. All that time I'd been watching him from a distance, and he'd been watching me back. I love you too, I said. I think I have since the first time I saw you. I just didn't know you were looking. We stayed on the phone for another hour, talking about nothing and everything. It was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. The next day, I got another message from Linda. This time it was a voice note. Margaret, I know you're furious with me, and you have every right to be, but I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out. Marcus is going to propose to you. He's already bought a ring. He's been planning it for months. He didn't tell you because he wanted it to be a surprise, but I think you deserve to know before you get trapped. He does this, Margaret. He moves fast, he proposes fast, he falls fast, and then when it falls apart, he destroys everything. That's the pattern that I know you don't believe me, but it's true. I listened to the voice note 3 times. My first instinct was to dismiss it. She was desperate, grasping at anything to regain control. But something gnawed at me. Marcus had been moving fast. The phone call, the coffee, the dinner, the confession, the I love you. All of it had happened in weeks, and he'd admitted he was intense. He told me he got obsessed. He'd warned me. So maybe Linda wasn't lying. Maybe she was just reporting what she'd seen. I confronted Marcus that evening. We were at his apartment, and I played the voice note for him. His face went through several stages: surprise, confusion, and then something that looked like recognition. She's not wrong, he said quietly. I was going to propose. Not next month, not next year, but eventually that I bought the ring 6 months ago, before we were even officially dating. I saw you at Linda's birthday, and I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. That's not a pattern, that's certainty. Marcus, that's not certainty. That's impulse. I'm 46 years old. Margaret, I've been in therapy for 8 years, and I know the difference between impulse and real connection. This is real. That's why I bought the ring. That's why I didn't propose immediately, because I wanted to make sure you were ready. But yes, I wanted to dot. I still do. I stared at him. You think love is enough to overcome a pattern of destruction? I think love is a reason to break the pattern. I've never felt this way before. Not with Ella, not with anyone. You're different. Margaret, you're not afraid to call me out. You're not afraid to walk away. And that's why I trust myself with you, because you won't let me become the person I was. I wanted to believe him. I desperately wanted to believe him. But Linda's words were still in my head, whispering doubt. I need to see the ring, I said. He went to his bedroom, came back with a small velvet box, and opened it. Inside was a simple gold band with a small diamond. Not flashy, not showy. Understated and elegant. I bought it at an antique shop, he said. It was 100 years old. I thought it had the right kind of story. I looked at the ring. Then I looked at him. I'm not saying yes. Not yet. But I'm not saying no either. Fair enough. I need to see the pattern end before I can commit to anything. He nodded. Then I'll show you. That night, after Marcus fell asleep on the couch, I went home and took out my laptop and I made a list on one side. The things he'd done right, the honesty, the therapy, the patience. On the other side, the things that scared me, the intensity, the history, the way his family seemed to revolve around him like he was a son they couldn't escape. I stared at the list for a long time. Then I crossed out everything on both sides and wrote, asterisk people are not math. They change, asterisk. I still wasn't sure if I believed that. 2 weeks later, Linda showed up at my door. She looked terrible, pale, thin, exhausted. I started therapy, she said. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. I don't want to be this person anymore. That's good. I also stopped contacting Marcus. I gave him space. I'm going to keep doing that until I learn how to stop controlling everyone. Linda, I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking for a chance to be better. I looked at my best friend, the woman who'd been by my side for 2 decades, the one who'd held my hair back after my divorce, the one who'd shown up at 3 a.m. when I had a panic attack. She'd made terrible choices, she'd hurt me, but she was trying. I'm not forgiving you yet, I said, but I'm not giving up on you either. She burst into tears, and I let her hug me. The thing I didn't know until later was that Ella had been the one who tipped Linda off about the ring, because Ella knew everything about Marcus. She kept tabs on him for a decade, made it her mission to warn every woman he dated. She saw it as her duty, her penance for being the one who destroyed him. I found this out when Ella called me herself, 2 weeks later. Margaret, she said, I know you've been talking to Linda and Marcus's mother. I know you've been trying to figure out if he's safe, and I want to give you the truth, once and for all. Marcus is not a bad man. He did terrible things, but he's not bad. I cheated on him because I was afraid of how much he loved me, afraid of being swallowed by his intensity. And my betrayal broke him, but he put himself back together. He did the work. I've never had the courage to do that. I just ran. Why are you telling me this? Because if I'd heard it when I was with him, I might have stayed. I might have given him a chance to heal, and we'd both be happier now. I was quiet for a long time. Then I said, "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for listening." A month later, Marcus and I sat on my porch, watching the sunset. He hadn't proposed. He hadn't even mentioned the ring. He'd just been present, patient, and consistent. The most boring thing in the world, and the most reassuring. "I think I'm ready," I said. "Ready for what?" "To say yes." He turned to look at me, his face unreadable. "Yes to what exactly?" "To you, to us, to whatever this is." He smiled then, a slow, warm smile that reached his eyes. "You don't have to say yes right now." "I know, but I want to, because you've shown me who you are now, and I believe you, not because you've changed, because you've stayed the same for 30 days, and that's a pattern I can trust." He took my hand, his fingers warm and steady. "Then yes," he said, "let's do this, slowly, carefully, but together." We didn't get married that year, and we didn't get married the year after that, but we stayed together through every test and trial and ugly moment. And when we finally did exchange vows, in a small courthouse with only a few witnesses, I looked at him and saw the man he'd become. Linda was there. So was Claire. So was Ella, because Marcus had invited her, and she'd come. It was the strangest wedding I'd ever attended, but it was ours. Afterward, we walked out of the courthouse into the sun. Marcus turned to me and said, "You know what I'll never forget?" "What?" "The first time I heard your voice on the phone. You were angry, frustrated, and completely unself-conscious. And I thought, that's the most alive person I've ever encountered. I want to spend the rest of my life watching her be alive." I laughed. "You're romantic. You make me one." He kissed me then, and I let myself fall into it. Because I'd spent 6 years watching him from a distance, another year untangling his family secrets, and an endless number of days deciding if I could trust him, and the answer, finally, was yes. The one thing I never told him was this. I'd known about Ella before he told me. Not from Linda, from a background check I'd run on him when I first started asking about him 6 years ago. I'd seen the divorce records, the police reports, the restraining order Ella had filed. I'd known everything from the start. I'd stayed anyway, because I saw the man he was becoming, and I wanted to be there when he got there. I never told him because I didn't want him to think I'd been investigating him. I wanted him to believe I trusted him. And I did trust him. I just also trusted my instincts. Secrets, I'd learned, were not all evil. Some of them were just doors waiting to be opened at the right time. And sometimes they opened by themselves. I told him 3 years later, not because I had to, not because the secret was eating me alive, but because we were sitting in our kitchen on a Sunday morning, drinking coffee and reading the paper like the boring middle-aged couple we'd become, and I realized I didn't want to carry it anymore. "Marcus," I said, setting down my mug, "I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago." He looked up from his crossword puzzle. "You're pregnant." "No, God, no. I'm 48. My eggs have retired and moved to Florida." "Then what?" I took a breath. 6 years ago, when I first started asking Linda about you, I did a background check, not a casual Google search, a full professional background check that I'm an HR director. I have access to databases most people don't even know exist. I found your divorce records that I found the police report Ella filed. I found the restraining order. I knew everything about you before we ever had a real conversation. He stared at me. The pen in his hand went still. "I knew you'd done terrible things," I continued. "I knew you'd hurt someone, that I knew you had a pattern, and I stayed anyway. I kept coming back, kept watching, kept waiting. Because I saw something in you that I couldn't explain. I trusted my gut." He set the pen down. "You knew about Ella. Everything. The stalking, the surveillance, the photos, the 2 a.m. visits. All of it. And you still stayed." "I still stayed, and I never told you because I didn't want you to think I was investigating you.